All right, and we are back. Peanut Gallery. What are we talking about?
Well, obviously, we got to talk about what happened on Tuesday. If you lived under a rock, you know what's been going on. But I want to talk about this from a different angle, because I think that this death, more than most, I think, has shown a light on the internet wrestling community in a good and in a bad way. And I'm going to start off with the positives, because there's a lot more positives than there are. Well, there are a lot more. There aren't a lot more negatives, but I think the negative stuff needs to be addressed as well, because I still think that people just don't get this. I think that the wrestling community as a whole, the people who are actual wrestlers, producers, managers, like the people who actually work in the business, they're all in understanding with what's been going on, how this affects the wrestling community.
Right.
Especially those who have been closest to Jay. And of course, it's been just everywhere. The pouring out of hearts and all of this kind of stuff was very very commendable. From no matter which company you were a part of, you always got, you understand that when a death happens, that you have to pay your respects, because the wrestling community as a whole is very tight.
Yeah,
they're very tight knit.
We came together after the tragedy happened.
Right.
The GoFundMe for the surviving two daughters who are still in the hospital. That reached its goal. I think it was like $250,000 the last time that I checked.
I think it's over like $2 million. And
a positive update is that I think the youngest is getting her feeling back in her lower extremities.
They're both in wheelchairs right now, so they're expected to walk again at some point.
Yeah, no, they're doing okay relatively.
Right.
So it's not like the Nats there. And once again, we do not know what happened.
Right. We don't know why it happened. But
we won't know until the autopsy.
Right. So anyways, wrestling community comes together, all well and good. That's just how the wrestling community is. Now let's talk about the internet wrestling community. Let's talk about the fans. Now, I think that most fans are in agreement with,
for the most part,
everything that the wrestlers and the wrestling companies and the wrestling community has said, no matter which company. I think most of them have. But we got to talk about the few that wants to make everything into a war.
Yep.
And so, for example, when we talk about like Triple H, when Triple H made his statement, there were some bad actors out there who criticized him for not signing the Briscoes, or criticized them for being on the bandwagon. I know this has been extended to a lot of other individuals as well. Even people who work for the company, like the people who are even criticizing like Tony Khan for his condolences, or other WWE wrestlers. They were being criticized by certain fans, and I saw this, and I want to address it because it's not okay.
Right. There was a time and a place to do stuff like that, and this was not the time nor the place.
Right. And then, and when people say that the internet wrestling community is toxic, well, this is exactly what we're talking about here. Even in the face of death, people will still find a way to criticize another a wrestler or a manager
or another company.
Right.
It's like, well, why didn't WWE do a tribute show? Why didn't they sign them? So number one, the Briscoes have been offered contracts to the WWE multiple times, and they turned them down.
They've turned down every single offer that I think WWE's extended them offers like 4 or 5 times throughout their careers.
Now, they did have a tryout, and I think we should just probably talk about the tweet that Jay sent 10 years ago that basically haunted him until his passing. Mm-hmm. So they rescinded the tryout because literally they were in Florida getting ready for the tryout when Jay sent that tweet. So that's why WWE did not do that. Years later, they did try to sign them because they became more established.
Right.
But, Jim Cornette actually broke this down really well on his podcast because he was very close with the Briscoes. But you have to take it with a huge grain of salt, because there were people saying, oh my God, why are people supporting this homophobic, white trash, blah, blah, blah for this? It's like, it was a tweet 10 years ago.
Right.
can you not realize that people can change?
Right.
Like, this is kind of where we kind of cross paths with some of you people in the IWC because you just don't let shit go.
Right.
Like,
and you also just don't get it either.
Right.
It's very...
It's insensitive
yes,
that you're
it's
saying about it
right.
now. It's like, why now? Because he died? Because now you can do this and because it's trending.
Right.
It's like, this is, if you want attention, this is not the way to get it.
Right.
And this is coming from me, who
right.
was just a nightmare on social media, basically, especially on Twitter, which
right.
you should follow me. But at the same time, it's like, where you know,
where and why and how and what are you doing?
And the wrestlers have come out, like Effie, who's openly gay, said that was not the Briscoe that I met.
Right.
What the Briscoe that I met was very caring and very inclusive and all of that, which, you know, if you're a wrestler, you should be, because you're going to be meeting those kinds of people.
So that's kind of where that kind of turns people off from wrestling because the community is so toxic.
It turns people away from AEW too, because
right.
a lot of those people were AEW fans,
right.
and it's like the AEW fans are toxic. I don't call them. They are not wrestling fans. If you only blindly support AEW and any slight change is a bad thing. Mm-hmm. Like, any person who says a criticism about AEW, they're bad. You're not a wrestling fan.
Right. And see, that is kind of where I want to kind of go into another topic, too, is that I think these wrestlers are given a voice. I mean, these wrestling fans have been given a voice now. It's kind of like MAGA, you know, ironically, because you have someone at the head who you worship like a god, and that's exactly what people do in the MAGA cult. It's a cult, is what it is. It's,
right.
It's not a.
It's dying. It's dying a death right now.
Right.
But at the same time, you can't just blindly support this. Like, if you want to be an actual wrestling fan, you have to look at everything.
Right.
You have to say, I like the sport. It's like oh god, I made a great analogy. It's like liking a football team
right.
without liking football.
Right.
It's like, I have to because I live in this city. We live in Vegas, but I would say that we support the Broncos more because I like football.
Right.
You know, especially around the Super Bowl. It's
right.
like, I'll watch it. You know, it's all fun and games.
Right.
But with wrestling, I treat it the same way. There are wrestlers that I really like. There are aspects with all companies that I really like. Mm-hmm. But the IWC, especially AEW fans, are like, nah. They just pout and just attack you. It's like, oh my god.
And I haven't seen as much, you know, again, we have to talk about Mari Miller too, because she came out this week and said that she committed suicide last week.
Well, she attempted. Sorry, she committed suicide. She was not being here yet.
Right.
It was right before the Battle Royal too.
It was. So let's talk about this, because I didn't see as much backlash from it.
I think it was harder for this one because Amari Miller put it out on TikTok that she wanted to commit, that she attempted on her life. She mentioned something on her other social media platforms
right.
after the fact, but she just, but she kind of turned it around. Obviously, there's support
right.
there, and there's...
And I think there's more support for her because she is not being followed by a lot of the AEW stands.
Yeah, and that's the other issue, is that it's like there is a time and place, and people just didn't do that with
right.
her. People did it with Jay.
Right.
And it's tragic. And it's like, look at the differences here.
Right. What is the common denominator? One of them was associated with AEW.
And one of them is associated with WWE.
So you're not going to get a lot of fans following her, especially NXT. She's just a rookie. So, you know, we do have to, again, this is something that had to be mentioned because there's a huge difference that I saw between those two reactions. And again, I think a lot of it just has to do with, obviously there's more coverage of Jay Briscoe than there is of Amari Miller. But
because Jay Briscoe actually died.
Right. But, you know, we have to look at who follows them, who do they associate themselves with, and I think the fan base says a lot about what's been going on.
Right.
And then we even have to go a little further back and talk about Kylie Ray when she had her problems. You know, that wasn't something that was hugely criticized. I mean, at the time it was, but you have to look at the fans that she has, you know?
Right.
Like
she was in NWA and
right.
Impact Wrestling at the time of her mental breakdown. Now, she's had a couple of them.
Yeah, she's had a couple.
But at the same time, it's like there was more outpouring of support than anything.
Right.
Nobody tried to criticize. Also...
Well, there was criticism in the way that she did it.
Oh, that's
but
true,
there
yes.
wasn't criticism in the fact that she had these problems.
Exactly. Right.
Or that she had to step away from the business.
Right.
For a while. But there just wasn't that level of just vitriol that I see. And again, I think it's because these people who are bad actors in the internet wrestling space are given a voice, or they are more confident about being the bad person.
Right.
You know, that you just don't expect it before.
Right, exactly. And with AEW, they cultivated this kind of toxicity from day one.
Yes, they did.
From day one, they cultivated this because they were going right after the E from the word go.
They were going right after
If they
it.
were like, this is just an alternative form, you can't go backseas at this point.
Right.
It doesn't exist. That doesn't happen.
Right.
You know, and, you know, we can talk about even before that with the outpouring of support when Eddie Guerrero passed away. Social media wasn't as prevalent in 2004 when he died. But at the same time, it was an outpouring of support. And people, for the most part, with Jay, when they were talking about Jay, it was support. And I think it was all well and good. But we got to talk about the Warner Brothers stuff because I think it's a lie.
Oh, okay.
I do not believe Warner Brothers stopped them because at the same time, why didn't they make it publicly clear if they did or not? They have been suspiciously silent on this matter.
Right.
And I think that AEW was not prepared for the tribute show to go live, and they couldn't get it. Not because Jay said what he said. It's because AEW does not have the pull that they used to.
Right.
And I think Warner Brothers, they might have been a little bit worried, but they would have said something about...
There would have been a pushback.
There would have been a pushback, and they would have publicly made it clear of this is why we did not allow a tribute show. There's been no evidence that I have seen of Warner Brothers stating the otherwise. And once again, they're cheats. We've run into this issue before, especially with the Saudis getting people all riled up with no backup information.
Right.
You know why? That's the culture. That is the culture that those people cultivated.
And most of the IWC wrestling sheets are like those fans.
They like AEW. They like to have that, and it's like
they're very pro AEW.
Right, and
There's
it's
a
like
very strong bias.
Oh, a very strong bias, and it's like look at the stuff that you guys are doing because then you get pie in your face, you look like a bunch of idiots, and then people on the outside, you know what they're doing? They're not going to be watching your guys' product.
Right.
They're going to go to where they feel welcome.
Right.
AEW fans, they do not welcome outsiders.
No.
If you do not like everything AEW, you are not there. And there were people that were tweeting, and this is like a thing, that I have to support the Jacksonville Jaguars because they're associated with the Cons. What weird culty-ass shit is that?
That is some weird culty-ass shit.
That is the weirdest culty. I never get that from WWE people. ever.
No.
Never. And I've been watching WWE for years, for decades at this point.
Yeah.
No other company has ever had this. TNA in their prime never had anything
No, they didn't.
like
I was
that.
going to mention that too. It's like TNA did not have that.
NWA, at least the current version of it, never had that issue.
Right.
It's only been AEW that has had this weird cult-like you're with us or against us mentality, and that's what churns
us versus
people.
them.
That's what churns people off. You ran away one of the founders of the company with Cody.
Right.
And I wouldn't be surprised if Kenny Omega and the Bucks are going to be right behind them because you know it's going to happen.
Yeah, eventually, inevitably.
I don't see New Japan have this problem either.
Yeah, I know New Japan doesn't have that issue.
Nope.
But, you know, that's just kind of what we're dealing with, I think.
It exposed what the internet wrestling community can do. It's a very passionate group of people, and if we don't shape up, this stuff will
Right.
continuously happen.
Yep, it will.
And it's so I hate saying this because I think it's ridiculous. It's problematic.
Yeah, it is.
Like, if you think anything is problematic, the AEW fan base is fucking problematic.
Oh, absolutely.
You know?
100% problematic. Shit.
You guys mask yourself from the fucking truth. You don't listen to outside perspectives if it's negative in any way, shape, or form. And I gave AEW a lot of praise during my
Right.
soapbox. So, like, what do you want us to do here?
Right.
You know, I don't get it.
But that's pretty much all I have at this point.
Yeah, I think
is just we had to address it because I saw a lot of crap from the community.
I did too.
With this, and of course this is the biggest story of the week. But we got to be better. We got to do better.
Absolutely. So. Let's talk about next week. So next week will be a Saturday show, not a Sunday
we
show.
are going to be doing the Royal Rumble.
Yep.
And yes, Saturday show. So look forward to that.
Yes, and if you did enjoy this, remember to like, follow, subscribe, rate it wherever you're listening or watching this on. Let us know what you think in the comments wherever they are. Follow us on all of our social medias. Everything will be in the link tree right next to me, the link there, or in the description wherever you're listening on. But as always, be
majestic.